Hope Channel, changing lives.
Healing doesn't mean that the pain never existed. It means the damage no longer controls our lives. Good afternoon, and once again, welcome to the program, Wounds of the Heart. We're going to help you heal what has become a wound in your heart as part of life growing, as part of what you went through, as traumatic issues or events that you saw when you were growing up, and certain things people are doing to you that you can't still let go in your heart. That's why we are here to discuss, deliberate on such issues to help you overcome certain things in life. This afternoon, I have the guest we started with last week, Wednesday. She's right here for her to help us finish what we started last week, Wednesday, on post-traumatic stress disorder in children. We learned a lot of things last week, Wednesday. Today, we're going to continue. In case you want to join our conversation, Facebook Live, Hope TVGH is still live there, and you can go on there and join us. If you want to send your comment and your questions, you can do it on our social media WhatsApp platform. That is 0559 680066, 0559 680066. If you want to call in case you want to call, the number to call is 0302 959065, 0302 959065, and when you call, we'll have the privilege to talk to you and answer every question you have with us. Today, Sleek Afrik had given me another fabric. We're wearing Sleek Afrik. Today, Sleek Afrik. Now we said we should wear nose masks everywhere we go. There are some nose masks when you wear, you can't breathe well. There's heat, but Sleek Afrik nose mask is not like that. And grab one a piece, costs 5-3. 10 cities, and it's beautiful, and so you can have it as part. I will go for a break. When I return, my guest is ready seated, and we'll continue from where we ended last week. Please don't go anywhere, stay, and we will be right back.
Who is a steward? What's our purpose here on earth? Do you want to know the ethics of successful business people? Then join our stewardship seminar with Pastor Dr. Paul Adusampa as we present Integrity in Business, the Christian Steward, from Monday, 27th April to Friday, 1st May. Time, 7 p.m. each night, only on Hope Channel, your preferred Christian TV.
Oh, hello, Chaplain.
Hello, Peter.
How do you do?
How do you do?
It's been a while.
Yes, it has.
I hope you're well.
Oh, yes, we are. And what about you?
Doing well, by God's grace.
All right. Thank God.
Chaplain, this reminds me. The last time at church, you made this presentation about Jesus Christ and God, and there's this question that's been bothering my mind.
Okay, let's hear it.
Who is Jesus Christ?
Okay, so as I said, Jesus is God, and then he is man.
Chaplain, this is rather confusing. I mean, how can God become man? I believe he's either God or man.
Okay, so Peter, we can have the long talk here, but why don't you join me on Hope Bible School?
Hope Bible School?
Yes, Hope Bible School. This is an interactive and in-depth study of the Bible, where Bible students study the Bible to know what it truly means.
Oh, okay. This is good news.
You can invite your friends to watch on TV or online.
I'll tell my friends and family to tune in.
I'm nowhere close to a perfect.
Come back from the break. My guest is ready. Ellen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You're looking good today. How are you? How is it going?
Well, it's going well.
Oh, we thank God for that. Viewers, my guest last week Wednesday we started with her on children who are suffering from PTSD, that is post-traumatic stress disorder in children, and that's what we're treating this afternoon. We began last week Wednesday and want to end today. In case you just joined us, that's the discussion we are having this afternoon. Mami Ellen, tell us. Last week Wednesday we went through the meaning of post-traumatic stress disorder. You took your time to give us the meanings of all. We saw children who were at risk, some signs and symptoms, and how best we can diagnose PTSD in children. But let me ask you, in summary, with the symptoms, I think that is what will tell a parent or somebody about the PTSD. Okay. In a jiffy, summary of post-traumatic stress disorder in children, what should we expect that should tell us that indeed this child is facing that trauma thing we are saying? Okay,
so you might remember last week we said it's usually after a traumatic event. Usually if there is symptoms in the first month, clinically we don't actually label it as PTSD. Okay. So if the stress of the trauma proceeds beyond the 1 month after the event and it's persistent. So when we're talking about persistent, we're thinking of symptoms such as nightmares, flashbacks, where the child is regressing in what they used to be able to do, where they've lost interest in things they used to enjoy. For example, if the child used to like going to school and they no longer want to go to school, or they used to like going for a ride with daddy and no longer want to do that, these are symptoms that you want to look at a bit more. Usually, like I said, the trigger or the main thing is that it's after a traumatic event. And then you see these symptoms and it will give you an idea that this child is not okay. The truth is, child PTSD goes underdiagnosed. And it can go untreated for years, mainly because it's not picked up early. So we need to be really vigilant with the children.
With the children and symptoms. So train up a child the way he or she should grow. We need to get connected with our children to know these symptoms. Because if a father or a mother doesn't have time for the child, all these symptoms probably wouldn't be seen.
And it could take a long time before you realize actually all this time you were sending the child to school, maybe they weren't going, or they were hiding in someone's house or the workshop or something like that. Because I know of an incident of a little boy who decided school wasn't for him anyway because he had such an experience with his class teacher. And he couldn't tell anybody about it. So when his parents dropped him at work, there was a carpentry shop not far from the school, and he'll go and hang out there. And he did that for months. So it's very important that as a parent or guardian or an adult with a child, that you have some knowledge of, in fact, a very good knowledge of the child, because clearly nobody was asking him what homework he had or anything like that, because otherwise that might have been picked up quicker. Yes, and maybe the relationship with the school, maybe it's a driver who picks up the child, so they come home late and the child's asleep. Did you do your homework yesterday? And that's that. So that connection really needs to be there.
So we need to build that connection right from the scratch of the child's life, so that when as he or she is growing, we can detect that my boy, my girl, there's something wrong with the child. Last week we ended with diagnosis. You said that diagnosis of PTSD takes time. Others also take a shot. Can you throw more light on that?
Okay, so diagnosis, first of all, needs to be done by a professional, because they need to look at the timeline, look at the symptoms, how severe it is, and then decide, okay, this is post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, when that is being diagnosed, a very good history is very important. If it's sketchy, because PTSD can resemble other mental health illnesses, and especially in a child, if there are certain cues that you are not able to tell the practitioner, it might be difficult to diagnose. And if you don't diagnose PTSD for what it is, the treatment is not effective. So once we know it's PTSD, we know how to deal with it. If we misdiagnose it as depression or self-harm, then we might miss the point, and that PTSD will continue. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes there is, for example, there was a little girl who was violently abused sexually. So she was raped by about 5 different people. Very traumatic event for her. And so she, trying to deal with it, started to cut herself.
Whoa.
Now, that was the only trigger that got her to see a psychiatrist. But because the issue was not discussed at home and she was told not to tell to anybody about it, she didn't say that to the psychiatrist. So he diagnosed her as depression with self-harm.
Self-harm, but
the real core wasn't dealt
wasn't
with.
dealt
So
with.
although she was in therapy for about 2 years, she went, and within 3 months she was back again. And it wasn't until somebody who, very neutral, talking to her about something else, that the whole thing came out.
Whoa.
And then we knew, right, now we know what the issue is. We can deal with it. So it's very, very important with the diagnosis that the whole story is told. And then the child can get the proper care.
Let me ask you, assuming I have come for diagnosis.
Right.
What are some of the questions you ask? What are some of the questions? Let me put it that way.
Okay, so my first question will be, how is this child different to you? Why have you brought this child?
Okay.
So I hear the bit you want to tell me.
Okay.
And then I'll ask you, what's the timeline?
Okay.
Was there something that happened around that time?
That time, okay.
Usually, practitioners prefer to talk to the patient, him or herself.
That is, but continue with it. I wanted to come back on that, but then.
So yes, so you want to know whether something happened, how it was dealt with at the time it happened, how the child feels about what happened, and how they've been coping with it. Once you get all of that, you can also find out since then what has changed. That's when the mother can tell you now she's wet in the bed.
Beautiful.
She's not going to school, her grades have dropped, and then you can see that, is she sleeping? Sleep is very important. Is she eating? That's also very important. So
yeah, those are the,
all these are all questions that will come into the assessment. And then we have a scale where you kind of scale the answers, and then it gives you an idea where they are, because you need to know how severe it is, how much is impacting on their everyday life, and then you can make your diagnosis.
So a child, the patient or the client comes to you, and you start asking the client question, and he or she refuses to talk.
Right. That's typical. That's fine. The thing with this kind of thing is you need to be patient and you need to give it time. So if the child comes in and refuses to talk, that's okay. You kind of look out for the cues the child is given. Sometimes you can sense that the child won't talk as long as that adult is in the room. You don't even know if the adult is part of the problem. So you request that the adult leaves. You try again. If the child won't talk, you let them go and say, I would like you to come and see me again. You make subsequent appointments until, because a lot of them won't talk until they feel they can trust
the person. It's true.
So you do that, and it's a very patient process, which is why the adult or the guardian needs to be fully on board. Because otherwise, who's going to bring the child? Who's going to even let them know it's okay to talk to this man or this woman, and they're only here to help you. So yeah.
The reason why I'm asking all these questions are this. A father, a mother, a parent probably might not have that patient like how you, the trained people are, and will be asking the child, why don't you want to go to school? And the child will try to be reluctant to not talking about it. Probably the next thing will be a cane, the next thing will be a hand, the next thing will be a slap, kind of. So as a parent who is watching, I just want us to, that's why I'm asking, address that issue for somebody who is watching, that when it comes to such issue and a child is not having the time for you to talk to you, don't force the child.
No, and a lot of the time, adults, you have an inner instinct. You know that there is something. So if they don't want to talk to you, if they have an older or younger sibling, ask them to talk to them.
That's a
you know, so Kofi, can you talk to Abba and see what's wrong with her? They might not tell mommy, but they will tell the sibling. And that way you'll have an idea. That's number one. Number two, a lot of the time they're afraid to say because they feel they will be blamed.
Yes.
Or maybe you are the adult who told them not to talk. So so that's a different issue as well.
And a clever child would say, so mom says I shouldn't say it.
You see, but I like those children. At least they will say something.
But
there are those who are very scared who will not say. So you have to go around it and find different ways, because it's the child's interests that we're looking out for. And that's where parents or guardians or adults need to be, find different ways to get the child the healing that they need. And by being very patient.
That is wonderful. Post-traumatic stress disorder in children are children who have suffered trauma in their lifetime.
Yes.
Does it happen to every child who has faced trauma in life?
No. Not every child who's gone through a traumatic event will develop PTSD.
Okay.
And sometimes you have a group of children who witness a tragic accident, but maybe out of 5 kids, only one might have issues with it following the event.
Okay.
Sometimes there are things that make someone more likely to develop PTSD. One of it is if they have a family history. So if they have a mother, father, or someone who has a similar experience, they might be more inclined to develop PTSD. Also, it's not just about a single event. The more times a child is exposed to a traumatic event, the higher the likelihood of them developing PTSD.
Okay.
So it's very important, and this is where you find that certain children are exposed, they see a lot of horrific things. It's not healthy. I just say that outright. It's not healthy to expose a child to a lot of traumatic events if you can help it. I mean, some children have to live through tsunamis and earthquakes and thunders and things like that. You can't help those. But if you know that this neighborhood is particularly violent, don't drive your child through there.
Okay.
If you know that, there are things that are just traumatic, save the child such experiences, because the more they are exposed to it, the more, because remember, one of the symptoms is flashbacks.
Yeah,
the pictures become so vivid in their mind, they relive it over and over again. And the more times you've seen, even as an adult, the more times you see an accident, if you see a car getting close to another one, you are almost a bit panicky about it. So, when you look at children, that is also something. Also, children who generally are not able to cope with change, tend to be more predisposed to be getting.
That's wonderful.
Yes. Also, how close the events are to the child is if it happens to a mother or a father or somebody closer
to the child.
It's more, rather than maybe it's a stranger they don't know, maybe they witness something coming home from school. So it's the proximity of the event to the child's personal life can also be a trigger.
So we shouldn't compare children.
Absolutely
especially
not.
when probably in the same neighborhood they experience that tragedy. We shouldn't compare children to that. As for this person's child, he's fine, Kofi is fine, Kojo, why? And yeah, why are you like that? We shouldn't do that, because
that is very, very damaging, because then you are not only downplaying their experience, you're also attacking their personality, and emotionally that has an impact on them. That is very, very bad. Because, for example, in certain neighborhoods there'll be a fight, and everybody will gather around to watch. If you observe carefully, you see 1 or 2 children who will be walking away from the event rather than going to see. So there are those who already know, no, I can't watch this, because there'll be blood, there'll be, people's faces will be swollen by the end of it, and they can't stand that. So every child is very different, and that also brings another slant to it, which is, when you're disciplining children, every child is different. So you need to tailor it. So this cane fixes all isn't the right way to go.
We'll come there. We'll come there.
But yes, so every child is different. So no, not everyone will develop PTSD.
Ellen, typical Ghanaian setting.
Right.
When children, as we're growing up, and there's such thing, you're saying people fighting, and you try to get out from the scene. Society will term you as somebody who is fearful, who is, if you're a man, they say you're back, they use such words on you.
Yeah.
Is it helpful?
Absolutely not. And this is where parents are advised to grow your child's self-confidence from very young. So they know it's okay to say no, even if everybody laughs at me. And once you get a child to accept and practice that, you're done. Because they know what's good for them. They know what's comfortable, and they can say no. Even if everybody boos at them, they're happy to walk away. There are some children like that, and that's a very good trait to have. And so I always recommend that children's self-confidence needs to be built from when they're young. Because then if someone calls you Kojo Besia, it doesn't bother you. Because you know that I would rather be called Kojo Besia than go and witness that and not be able to sleep at night.
Beautiful, because we sleep individually, we don't sleep together. Eyes are
and if I'm open and awake all night, I will be the one sleepy and tired in the morning, not you. So I don't really care whether you call me Kojo Besia or not. So if you can get a child to do that,
that's wonderful.
That's brilliant. Because when then we come to some of these abusive events, the children who are able to stand up for themselves and are not afraid of what people will say because of their stance, they're least likely to get abused. Because if you say, come and sit on my lap and you try doing anything to them, they will get up and walk away and say, no,
No,
uncle, I will not do
because
that.
it's
And if you threaten them, they will tell mommy or daddy, because they have that confidence. When they don't have that confidence, they are even scared to say no to you. And then they become victims of such abuse when they could have just walked away.
Beautiful. I'm enjoying our conversation because it's about children. It's about what an adult now is doing that probably started way back when he or she was young, and he can't fathom or understand why he or she is going through that now. But it's something that if we could have been able to curtail when we were young, these things wouldn't happen. How best can we treat PTSD in children? What are the measures?
So there are a couple of ways.
Okay.
The first one is talking therapy with a counselor, with a trained personnel in what we call cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay.
You would have heard that
CBT,
in many of these mental health conditions.
CBT, they call it CBT.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's one of the ways where you get the child, you get to the bottom of it, you let them talk it through, and eventually they come to understand that it was an event, it's past, and they find ways to cope with it. And CBT changes the way you think about the event, so that it's not like you would never remember it, but you have a coping mechanism to it.
Does it, wait, before you come to the next, does it have a span?
Well, every child's different. Depends on the severity of the event, how much it's affected the life of that child, and how well they cooperate with the process. Like I said, some of them will take about 6 weeks before they even open up. So your 6-week CBT could be 3 months. Do you see what I mean? Or for some people, you know, they are able to get in, and then they develop the tools to cope. And then they might have a relapse, or they might have things that are not going well, a trigger that sets them back, and then they can continue with that as well. But the good thing about CBT, it gives you the tools to work through what's going on in your mind, and then you know how to cope. So that's one way. The other is to use medication. Now you'll recall that when we talked about some of the complications, things like suicidal thoughts, anxiety, depression, substance abuse might come into play. So sometimes medication is used, or you could use both, depends on how the patient is presenting, because sometimes if they can't sleep and you haven't worked your CBT or your therapy to a point where they can overcome that in sleep, they might need some sleeping help with medication.
So do you sometimes fuse the CBT with?
Absolutely. Sometimes the two are used. Mostly in the beginning, in the severe cases, they use both. And as they develop tools to cope and are able to sleep better, eat well, and they find the days are going better, you can drop the medicines gradually and then just let the patient cope with the
how best can we, in terms of adding the medicine to the CBT, how best can you do so that the child wouldn't be dependent on?
Okay, so there is this real misconception that medicines used to treat psychiatric illnesses are addictive. That is not the case.
Okay.
There is one particular group of medicines that you can become tolerant to, you can become dependent on. It's very rarely used, and when it's used, it's only used for a short period of time. And if you use it for a short period of time, it doesn't have that dependence factor with it. So, but a lot of the medicines, like the ones used for depression and for anxiety and even for suicidal ideations, they are not addictive medicines. So that is a misconception. And sometimes people are reluctant to take their kids to the doctor because it will become an addiction. That's not the case. And practitioners are very aware of this. So they will tell you how to take it, how long to take it, and if you work with them in partnership, you will not develop the addiction. So it's not a worry that I think patients should be, parents rather, should be concerned about. I think your job would be to do it as the doctor has said, and they will make sure that your child does not become addicted to the drug.
So, but with the CBT, I'm so much with the CBT because mostly it begins with CBT before going to adding the medicine. CBT as in general, does it have a time span or depending on the patient? It
depends on the patient. Usually they would give you a few, depending on the assessment, they will say, okay, we think you might need maybe 6 or 12 weeks sessions of CBT. Now, every session, even if it's for an hour, depends on how much progress you can make in that hour. So it's very individualized and it's very dependent on how well you are responding. I don't see any therapist who will say, right, 6 weeks you're out the door, when they can tell that you are now beginning to emerge from that trauma. So it's very individualized, and it can last for as long as it needs to last to get you the result that you need.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. In case you are joining in, we are discussing post-traumatic stress disorders in children, and not necessarily in children alone, but in some of you or some of us are having it hard time in our life now because of things that we couldn't recognize when we were young. And these are the things we want to change in the life of our younger ones who are up and coming. I'll go for a break, and when I return, the show is still Wounds of the Heart, and we're discussing how to help PTSD in children. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Who is a steward? What's our purpose here on earth? Do you want to know the ethics of successful business people? Then join our stewardship seminar with Pastor Dr. Paul Adusampa as we present Integrity in Business, the Christian Steward, from Monday, 27th April to Friday, 1st May. Time, 7 p.m. each night, only on Hope Channel, your preferred Christian TV.
On Monday, April 27, 2020, the President of the Southern Ghana Union, on behalf of the Church in Ghana and its institutions, Adventist Development and Relief Agency ADRA, Advent Press, Valley View University, Ghana Adventist Heritage Fund, and Hope Channel donated 100,000 Ghana cedis to the National COVID-19 Trust Fund.
And commend the government for the efforts put forth to deal with the situation. As a church, we have been praying that the Lord's intervention would help. In fact, 32 days down the line, we had declared 100 days of praying. We pray that the Lord's blessings will be on you. We appreciate the good work you are doing. We hope that your efforts and the favor of God will help solve this problem for us.
Receiving the check, the chairperson of the Trust Fund, Justice Sophia Kufu, had this to say.
On behalf of the Board of Trustees of the COVID-19 National Trust Fund, I received this check with a lot of gratitude. We thank you, and I thank you on behalf of the people of Ghana for the money and also for the continuing prayers.
Present at the presentation were Pastor Lawrence Andrews Ewu of Encounter with Truth, Dr. Williams Papo Brown of the ADRA Ghana, Nia Ite Harmon of Hope Channel Ghana, and Dr. Solis Asafo, Communication Director of the Church.
All right, welcome back from the break. We're still discussing PTSD in children, how best we need to help them out. And we left off by talking about the two mechanisms of treating PTSD, that's the CBT and the medicine that we use. How best can we prevent children in getting into PTSD?
Okay, so you would remember the last week when we talked about some of the things that can cause PTSD. We talked about natural disasters, we talked about car accidents, we talked about, so there are some events that we can't control.
We can't control.
So natural disasters, you know, there are some of these we can't control, but the ones we can control, such as physical abuse, sexual abuse, those are the ones that as parents we can have some impact in trying to prevent. So one of the things would be to teach your child it's okay to say no.
Okay.
And stick to your guns. If anything doesn't feel right, isn't comfortable, isn't what you want, you walk away. Now, it's one of the best gifts a parent can give to a child. It's okay to speak your mind and stick by it. Do you know? And it's something that some of us learned as adults. But I am sure that any child who has been sometimes physical abuse you can't really do much about, but sexual abuse also, depending on the age, sometimes being able to stand your ground and say no and walk away or run away, whichever the case might be, could be, you know, life-saving for you. So in a way, parents or guardians, there's limited things we can do because we can't control everything 100%. But we can build in the child the confidence to walk away from anything that feels wrong. And also, if a child who is very confident and is able to say no, even if the worst happens, because of their confidence, they are more likely to talk about it. And that's one of the first steps to healing.
To healing, talking about it and listening.
So, in terms of prevention, you know, we pray for our kids. We try to keep them from harmful circumstances. Sometimes children are very defiant and they want to go places where we know it's not going to be helpful for them. But, you know, as Christians, we can pray for them. It's the best gift you can give your child is constantly pray for their safety. But also teach them it's okay to walk away when things are not
So in teaching them, is it okay for parents to talk about certain things and but not depriving the children away from the scene, but talking about?
So I'll give you an example. When you are watching a show or a movie or something with your children and there's something bad happens in the movie, don't just let the scene roll over and talk about it. That is very good because then you can talk through things and you will find that is really helpful for the mental health.
So we need to talk about it. For instance, my boy, when we're watching something, I don't know, all of a sudden he will just close his eyes. Cover his eyes, like, so which means that and he probably will hide behind me or the mom, and I realize I know he doesn't want to see that thing. But I sometimes think that because he's a boy. That's why I'm asking. Most of the fathers, we have that thing because once he's a boy, he needs to be beautiful.
But honestly, let's be honest with ourselves. We can't have all the men in our society macho and butchery and never afraid of anything, because even our most strongest men, they have their fears. Do you see what I mean? And it takes a real man to accept his fear and say, no, this bothers me, I won't do this, rather than pretend it doesn't and walk straight into it. Do you see what I mean? So there is that concept also that we need to, because you will find children are very different. Because I don't know of a little girl who doesn't, all you need to do is raise your voice a little bit higher than normal tone and she's panicking. So for someone like that, any kind of movie that has guns, so you know that, you know, as a parent or guardian, you need to try and show, not because they're timid and, you know, this one is too afraid, let's just push them into. No, we need to be mindful. Like we said earlier, children are different. And if the more we can protect them, the better. It doesn't make them any less adjusted in society. It's about protecting what to them is a terror.
All right. So with the preventive measures, can you know that this child is afraid of this? This one child is constant with this. How can we?
So that comes from spending time with your children. That comes from knowing them as they grow up. Sometimes we ignore the signs and we push them away. The trick is to be able to know that, okay, my child is afraid of this, or certain circumstances puts fear in. And if you as a parent think that's unacceptable, you work with them to overcome it, rather than label, rather than push it so that their self-confidence becomes low. Because like I said, you don't want that. You want them to be confident enough so that when something external is happening, they can stand up for themselves or speak up for themselves.
Right. You can send your questions and your comments on our social media platforms and we'll read it for you. With this, what we just said, how can parents help their children to live in this PTSD?
Okay, so once a child has a traumatic event that they are struggling to deal with, the first thing is don't pretend it didn't happen.
The child?
The adult.
The adult, okay.
So because you are not pretending it didn't happen, they feel okay to talk about it.
Okay.
So help them understand that you appreciate the fact that this was traumatic for them and that you are available if they want to talk about it, if they are having any memories of it that is bothering them, to come and talk to you about it. In the beginning, they might say nothing, but if they know you are open to the discussion, maybe months down the line, they'll come and say, Daddy, remember that accident? When I close my eyes, I still see the car. Do you see what I mean? That will then give you, the father, the sitting up and think, okay, what else? Are you able to sleep? Maybe Monday to Friday, I only sleep on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, if that. Then you know there's a problem developing. But that's only because you have made it okay for him or her to come and talk to you about it. So the first thing is, don't pretend it didn't happen.
You need to admit. Parents should
admit that it happened. Let it be okay to talk about it, whether it's now or 2 years down the line. I'm happy to hear whatever you have to say about this event. They might say nothing now, but eventually they know that daddy is open to talking about it. That's number one. Number two is, sometimes when there's a traumatic event, it shakes the life of the family.
Okay.
So, for example, you remember the events where the father committed suicide and the kids were. So it's changed things for them. As parents, how we can support the children is that we try and keep our lives as normal as possible. Sometimes it is not easy. Sometimes you want to pull the child away from school for some time. You want to give them space to, because everybody's talking about it. Maybe something happened in the neighborhood. Everybody knows that Kwesi's daddy hung himself, so they're trying to keep him away. But children do very well with routine. And so taking that away takes the one thing he's comfortable with also away. So yes, if you need to keep him for a couple of weeks or more, fine. But eventually he will need to step out of the house. Yeah. He will need to go back to school. Definitely. So let's not prolong that process longer than is necessary. Rather, let's give him the tools to say, yes, daddy hung himself. Do you know? No, I don't know, but I'm dealing with it. That is a better approach than hiding and everybody, oh, Kwesi's coming, let's not talk about his father. Okay, now it sounds counterproductive, but for him, he will grow up. The longer it is not dealt with and talked about, the longer his healing takes. And that is one thing we need to get into our heads about it. We cannot pretend it didn't happen. So rather than doing that, let's give them the tools to handle it. And that begins with, it's okay, it's already happened. What's Kwesi going to do about it? Nothing. But, you know, if his friends can't talk to him about it, and the church, the school, the family, nobody's really talking about it, then suddenly it becomes another thing he needs to deal with, another thing he needs to hide. He can't show his emotions, he's a man, he can't cry. All of that kind of thing isn't healthy. So we need to admit and be supportive. In admitting the fact that it has really happened to the child, supporting them to know, probably pulling them out from school, but you can't put them out from church, is it? It's not healthy, but sometimes some church environments are not healthy. Let's be honest. Sometimes they're not. They're supposed to be the places we run to, but sometimes it's the places we need to keep away for a little while. Because some of our church folks aren't mature. They don't do it on purpose, but they don't help. Okay, so depending on what kind of a church family you have, you will have to be more, discretional about what you do with, especially when children are involved. Sometimes parents do it for their interest. Now that is where the issue is. That's where because sometimes the child is fine, so you have to go by how your child is coping with it. And they are probably okay to talk about it. They don't feel any way about it. But you, the parent, feel, oh, look at so-and-so's father. I can see them sat in that car. They must be talking about us. And so for that reason, I won't. So that is not helpful for the child. That's why I'm saying that you don't take away from their normal life any longer than is necessary. So, and children are very, very adaptive. They adapt quicker than adults most of the time. So, you might find that, okay, he's dealt with it. Daddy's been buried. Okay, this is it's what it is. But then maybe the relatives or the family members are feeling a little bit twitchy about it, and so they keep him away. Now, we're talking about PTSD in children. And for this reason, it is not healthy to keep the child any longer than. Beautiful. So parents shouldn't be saying that they are children, so they need not to know about the situation. Let's take them away from the scene. They all see people are wearing black. They see somebody in a coffin on the stage, and so they are children. And children, more of you to know that you go to funerals, and the children probably will be walking about like nothing had happened. Is it the best? Is it the best? According to what we are saying, admitting and supportive, is it the best? See, there's a very fine line between trying to protect the child from seeing a traumatic event to making the child not face reality. So if the child's father is the dead man, let him understand that his father is gone.
Okay.
Speak to them in a language that they will comprehend that this man has been taken away by God and he's going to be buried. If there's a funeral, if you think the child can't cope with seeing the dead father there, let him know it's his father that's being carried away. Sometimes children need that to be able to say, okay, and he was put in the ground, he was covered. Daddy is
so
buried.
He's no more, he's not,
Daddy
he's not traveled.
home. Because what you don't want is, Mommy, where is Daddy?
He's traveled.
Mommy, when is Daddy coming back? How did
we don't know.
And then he begins to feel Daddy's abandoned him.
Yeah.
Why is Daddy not coming back? What did I do?
Okay.
No, that's going on the wrong path. Especially if the child, and children understand death from a very young age.
Beautiful. That is what I want our parent out there to understand.
So it's okay. And if you must say, you know, Daddy is gone to heaven, Daddy is, but they understand death.
Yeah.
For some reason, children understand, and sometimes they don't understand the grieving part of it.
That is what they will play. They will play. They will do their normal thing there.
So, but if Daddy is gone, please find a way to tell the child that Daddy is gone. So they are not expecting him back. They're expecting to see him someday when Jesus returns.
Yeah.
That's a better picture, because you don't want them start developing a sense of abandonment, a sense of neglect, because Mommy or Daddy just went away. Do you see what I mean? And they understand the concept of he's been sick, he was taken to the hospital, didn't come back. Do you understand? So talk to them about it. Mommy was ill. When she was taken to the hospital, the doctors did their best, but she passed away. So she's not coming back. We'll all miss her very much. But if you have any thoughts about Mommy, you want to talk about Mommy, you miss her, come and talk to me.
That's a good thing.
Do you see what I mean?
A good thing, yeah.
Then the child knows, oh, okay, they will miss Mommy. Of course they will miss Mommy. But if you don't give them that room, they can't come and tell you, because he said Mommy traveled.
No, traveled.
So
I know when Mommy travels, she will definitely come back.
You see the point. So I think I am very, very pro telling the children the truth in a way they will understand, but don't lie in any way, shape, or form. That's not healthy.
Continue, Ellen. Just tell us more about, about how parents
can help. So we're talking about building their self-confidence by teaching them to say no. Do not avoid the situation. Thirdly, you might not be avoiding it with a child, but do not pretend to other people as well that things are not what they are.
Okay, that's another good point.
So sometimes they think, okay, we have an understanding in the house, but as soon as Mommy steps out, she puts on this whole different image as though
nothing has happened.
Yes. Now that's very confusing for children as well.
From the house is different. When I go out, she go outside, she's different.
Okay. So I had a client once who was a male. He was 17, so not a kid. But he was really struggling to deal with the realities at home and the realities outside at church, at school, with the family gatherings, as though, you know, everything was okay. So as well as not lying to the children, let's not pretend. And this is, again, for the health of the child. So parents and guardians need to put the egos aside and do things in a way that will promote the better health of the child.
Somebody have asked before we continue, said, hi, Pastor and Madam Ellen, good day to you. Good day to you too. Please, I know of a child who sleeps and wakes up at night and cries saying he has been seeing snakes. This follows an incident where a live snake was seen in her room. The mother took him to a pastor for prayers. And upon listening to his discussion, I think the child is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. Could the prayers alone be enough? Amma from Accra.
Okay, so I know prayers are good. So yes, prayers are okay, but they might not be enough. This child needs to see a counselor, someone trained in post-traumatic stress management, because they can get the child to look at that event in a different way that would help them sleep. Because if every night they're waking up with snakes in them, I mean, what kind of quality of life is child going to have? But prayers are good. God does miracles all the time, so I don't take that away. But I think the child would need to see a therapist. Wherever possible, I would say take the child to see someone mental health trained. They can talk through with the child and allow that child to talk about it every time it happens. And if that's every night, make her know it's okay to come and tell whoever she's living with, Mommy, Daddy, Auntie, Uncle, that happened again last night. And get more information from the child, because for you know, she's sleeping in a particular position in her bed. She's you know trying to cover her face with a cloth or whatever the case might be. It's clearly affecting her quality of life, and there is help available. So please, we can pray and we can seek help as we do with all other medical conditions.
Daniel also says, thanks for your education. Daniel, thank you for also being part of this program. Boaf Mercy, hi, I'm Mercy watching live from Takrady. Mercy, God bless you for watching us live from Takrady. And Adeyebo also saying that thanks for the education. Thank you, Adey, for the comment pass. With what she Amma sent, I think that prayers alone, as we're saying, prayer is important. But when we get to know that the child is suffering from something, and God has given people the knowledge and skill to also help, we need to push the people there to help them, so that we will support with prayers. You know, so all right, tell us more about how parents can.
So how we can help. So let's not pretend outside and give the children a confusing picture. Another thing parents can do is commit to their therapy. Sometimes you go and take them to the therapist, you're thinking, we've been doing it for 6 weeks, why are you still having the same thing? It's not working, let's leave it. Some of these mental health conditions can take a while, and once you break through, that's it. So it's very important that parents are patient with the therapy process. That is one of the ways we can help them deal with it. If we begin to feel fed up, then they feel like they're becoming a burden, and they'll pretend it's okay when it's not. So it's important that we have the patience.
So our parents shouldn't use canes to address such issues.
Why would you use a cane? You just compound the issue, because what the child is facing is no fault of their own. Do you see what I mean? Sometimes we punish unnecessarily, and we coil them back when we should be drawing them out so that they can have the healing they need. So caning is absolutely the wrong thing to do, because it's not their fault that they're seeing these flashbacks. They might have witnessed it with a brother or sister, and they're the only ones feeling that. You know, already they feel bad about it. They don't need any more punishment on that regard.
So with this, definitely, because from after the parents, we live in a society, we go to church, we belong to a sect. How can the church help such people when it comes to PTSD?
They need to not stigmatize. Sometimes stigmatization happens right in the house of God, which is a shame. But nobody is afraid to say they get migraines. So why should someone be afraid to say they have PTSD from an event that was not even their own doing? You get my point. So stigmatization is a big thing, and it will be very helpful and very supportive for the child if he or she is not stigmatized. So this person is the one who keeps seeing that is so wrong, and that's why people pull out of the society, hide, rather than continuing their normal routine, which is then counterproductive. So as a society, as a church family, we need to not label, not stigmatize, not push, because the truth is it could have been any of us.
Yes.
It's only by the grace of God that it isn't.
It didn't take your
So, you know, we need to bear that in mind and be each other's keeper. Okay, that's number one. Number two, while you're not stigmatizing, you need to let them know it's okay. They are no less human or no less kwesi or kwejo than they were before the incident. And so we need to be more sympathetic and more empathic about it. Don't make them feel like, oh, poor Kofi. Really, that is not even helpful.
Everyone is pitying you. Everyone is pitying you. When you come to church, people get around to you to ask,
how are you feeling? No. That is not helpful. So if you have always been a casual, hi Kofi, how are you doing? Keep that.
Definitely.
Do you see what I'm not suddenly, Kofi, come and sit down. How is it going? No, that wasn't what it was before. Don't make it now. That is not helpful. Although some people think that's helpful, it really isn't. Just keep your relationship with this child like it was before. Unless you find that relationship is becoming more stressful for the child to cope with, which doesn't tend to happen. Okay. It might happen if you represent something that serves as a trigger. So if that child was raped, for example, if you always used to get her to sit on your lap and ask her how she's doing, that would not be appropriate to do. So, but you see what I mean? Unless you represent a trigger for that event, keep your relationship as it was before.
Would you say with me that because of things that probably might be happening in church, like what we're discussing, all pastors or caregivers should undergo such a training?
I am always for anybody who looks after vulnerable people, older adults, children, you know, women, that kind of thing, should have some kind of mental health training. Once you've had a proper training, your approach is very different. And I think our pastors, if that's not already being done, because I know they do some counseling, but actually mental health conditions training will be a great help, because I think they are one of the first, almost front line when it comes to family issues. And trust me, mental health illnesses are a huge family burden that nobody can talk about. And if pastors who are held in places of trust have some training, they will help one identify and start the healing process even before professionals come in. So yes, I
So
definitely
my sister,
advocate
my
that.
brother is the one suffering from PTSD. How can I, as a sibling or a family member, help such a victim?
Such a child. So one of the first things is be trustworthy.
Okay.
Now, with siblings, you know which of your siblings you can trust with what kind of information, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So to be able to support your sibling who has PTSD, be there for them. Let them know you have their back. Let them know, you know, you don't see them any less of a sibling because of what's happened. And talk. You know what I mean? When a person suffering from PTSD feels safe, they are even their symptoms are bearable in a way. Do you see what I mean? Because they know they're in good company. If they suddenly begin to have flashbacks and begin to have a panic attack, they know you've got their back. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that alone is comforting. So as a sibling, you need to be supportive to a person with PTSD. You need to have an open line. You need to be seen as not judgmental and having their back, if you like. And let them know, you know, if they have appointments, offer to go with them. You know, if there's something that you think, you can see changes because you live with them.
Beautiful.
And so when you've seen changes, you say, I noticed that last night you did this or you did that. You know, anything you want to talk about.
You shouldn't, they shouldn't mock them. You shouldn't
No,
tease
don't
them.
tease them, no. And let them know, you know, is there anything you want to talk about? Even if they say no every time, there'll be a day that they will say, hey, really, this thing is not
reason
going well.
Ellen, the reason why I'm asking this question, you see, when the child or the sibling wet the bed, when he or she wakes up from sleep and start talking, the next day it is the brother or the sister who will use that incident to tease. Okay, probably he or she doesn't know what is wrong with the sibling, but when we see such signs or symptoms as we said, as a sibling, I need not to tease my brother or my sister, but rather those things should serve as this is a sudden change, and my brother or my sister might be going through something.
Yes.
And I need to.
We need to come from a place of caring. You know, I know teasing and calling names is almost part of every family, you know, kind of tradition. But especially when you know there's been a trauma, and especially when you know this is not like him or like her. When something like that happens, rather than tease, find out. You know, find out what could be the cause. Maybe sometimes they don't even know. So, Charlie, this recently, I don't know what's been going on, but something's not. Even they could accept that. And then, you know, that's not the time to tease. You know what I mean? Because your grown brother or sister will not be wetting the bed under normal circumstances. So you want to come from a place of support.
Beautiful.
You know, and that's what will help.
So because
if they think you're laughing at him, and this person sadly hasn't got a friend they trust outside the home, they're trapped with it. Who are they going to talk to?
And that's where the suicide ideation comes in.
That's where self-harm comes in. That's where addictions come in, because they are looking for an escape. Everybody needs someone to talk to. So as a sibling, wouldn't you rather be the one? Because you know, regardless of what happens, you are blood, you're related. So you know what I mean. Whereas if someone outside the home, sometimes they don't have that assurance, because when push comes to shove, they might save themselves and leave you. But if you have a brother that you know, we fight, we argue, but this brother will always stick up for me when it comes to the, then you know. So we need to come from a place of support.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. It's amazing that I don't know why time runs like that. You know, wow. Mami Ellen, you're a mother, so. Talk to our children out there as far as PTSD is concerned. What message are you going to leave us? Okay, so life happens. If something happens to you, feel free to talk about it.
And it will be great if you can talk to your family, but if you can't, find an adult you trust and talk. Do not pretend things that happened didn't happen.
Okay.
And do not let anybody shut you up for something you know in your heart is not right. It's very important. And don't let someone tell you what you can or cannot do. As a child, you need to obey, you need to be respectful, but you know in your heart that right and wrong. If it is wrong, speak up.
All right. So if it is wrong, we need to speak up. We've been in a wounded heart for a quite longer time because we don't have somebody to talk to, we don't have somebody to share with. Probably you might be old as we're talking now, and you've remembered certain things you went through when you were young and you couldn't have anybody to talk to. And that thing probably is having an impact in your life. You can still have somebody to share with, a mental health personnel or as a clinical psychologist or a counselor or a psychologist, and let the person take you through the process or the systems that you were supposed to go through when you were young. Because when you were growing, we didn't have such set thing because of where we're coming from, because they will use cane instead of words. I always say that, but because that is what I saw in the area I lived. Even I saw there was this father who used a wire, this wire to discipline. Yeah, master, they will discipline all because the child stole from the mom. You see, it is good to steal from your mom when you were young, but as to how best it will be used to address, or they will use to address that stealing, is something like an armed robber. But probably something push the child to do. So talking, as you're saying, we need not to overlook that. We should talk to our siblings and talk to. So Christ says something in Mark chapter 9, verse 36 and 38. 36 and 37, I want us to retreat and get some meaning out from that. He said, and he took a child and set him in the midst of them. And when he had taken him in his arms, he said unto them, 37, whosoever shall receive one such children in my name, receiveth me. And whosoever shall receive me, receiveth not me, but him that sent me. So if your child or your child or your neighbor's child or your cousin or your nephew or your niece is doing something that you need to receive them out of love, to talk to them, to help them go through that, and you use canes or whatever to talk about it, I think you'll be lashing the back of Jesus Christ instead of the child. Because if you should receive these wonderful ones, Christ says that we have received him. When children pray, God listens. When they are in pain, God knows about it. So when a child will go through something in life, it is our duty as a parent, as a family member, as a society, as the church, to help children overcome certain things in life. Stigmatization is not the best way. Pitying people are not the best. Talk to them about it. Let them pour their heart out. And after doing that, healing begins from the heart. We are here to help you do that. That's why Wounds of the Heart has come to help all of us in this. And before I leave, he said healing is an art. It takes time. Healing takes time. Like the physical wound, so is the heart wound. It takes practice and it takes love. Your child needs that love. If you want to punish your child, punish the child out of love. And the church should roll out programs to help educate families, especially with family life ministries, to educate families about how best we can handle certain things when it comes to our children's life. And lest I forget, Slick Afrik is still here, the fabric from them, and they also have nose masks. I told you that some nose masks, when you wear, you can't breathe. But Slick Afrik nose masks, it's easier. 1 5 cedis, 2 8 cedis, 3 10 cedis, the cheapest in town. Please don't hesitate. I know my producers and my crew members will have theirs soon, so they shouldn't worry. Ellen Yanka, God bless you for coming, and it's a privilege to have you on my show. And today too, Hosby was behind you, and I could see how the explanation was going. You see, behind every successful man, there's a woman. So behind every successful woman, there's a man that helps that woman. God bless you for watching. I'm your regular host, Pastor Daniel. And please stay safe. Still, the preventive measure of COVID-19 is still around. Wash your hand thoroughly, use sanitizer, and also try to put on your face mask. God bless you, and we'll meet again next week. Bye.